Frostpunk 2 is the highly anticipated sequel to the original survival city-building game, released by 11-bit studios. Set in a frozen, post-apocalyptic world, the game continues to challenge players to lead the last remnants of humanity through harsh conditions, difficult decisions, and moral dilemmas. This time, Frostpunk 2 expands on the themes of survival, resource management, and human nature while introducing new mechanics and a deeper narrative. In this expanded review, we'll cover the key aspects of Frostpunk 2 in more detail, from gameplay to atmosphere, as well as the tough ethical choices that define the series. Setting and narrative. The story of Frostpunk 2 takes place 30 years after the events of the original game. Humanity is still struggling to survive in a world where the sun has dimmed and the temperature has plummeted. The central conflict revolves around the city of New London, where the player, as the city's leader or steward, must make difficult choices to ensure the survival of the population. In this harsh environment, resources like coal, food, and warmth are still critical, but the sequel introduces new resources and challenges, including the introduction of oil extraction as a central plot point. The game's narrative is driven by the player's decisions, and these choices can have lasting impacts on the city's development and its inhabitants. Unlike many city-building games where the focus is purely on infrastructure, Frostpunk 2 forces you to consider the political, social, and ethical consequences of your actions. The people you govern will react to your decisions, and this dynamic system of citizen feedback adds a layer of complexity to the game. Factions and politics. A significant addition to Frostpunk 2 is the introduction of multiple factions within the city, each with their own ideologies, goals, and demands. Early in the game, you might only have a few factions to deal with, but as your city grows and becomes more complex, new factions emerge. For example, the Stalwarts are a group focused on law and order, while the Pilgrims reject technology and wish to turn off the giant generator that powers the city. Each faction has its own vision for how the city should be run, and they often come into conflict with one another. Balancing these factions is key to maintaining stability, but doing so is rarely easy. As you try to appease one group, you may inadvertently anger another, and in extreme cases, factions can splinter, leading to further unrest. The faction system adds a new level of depth to the game, making it feel more like a complex political simulator, where managing relationships is as important as managing resources. This system ties directly into the game's morality mechanics, where the choices you make can lead you down different ethical paths. Whether you choose to negotiate with factions, make concessions, or suppress dissent with force, every decision shapes the future of your city and the society that inhabits it. The moral ambiguity of these choices is one of the game's strongest points. You might start with good intentions, but as crises pile up, it becomes easier to compromise your values for the sake of short-term survival. At its core, Frostpunk 2 is still a city builder, but it introduces several new mechanics that differentiate it from its predecessor. The resource management system has been expanded, allowing players to harvest not just coal, but also oil, which becomes the new fuel of the future. Players must deploy frostbreakers, specialized machines that crack open the icy terrain to expose resources beneath. Instead of assigning individual workers to specific buildings, players now manage entire districts. These districts can be tuned for different levels of productivity, depending on the workforce available. This system gives you more flexibility, but it also means you need to think strategically about where to place certain districts, as their proximity to sources of heat or pollution can affect their efficiency. The district system also introduces more opportunities for optimization, but it comes at the cost of granular micromanagement that some players enjoyed in the original. Balancing resource output, heat levels, and worker satisfaction requires careful planning, especially when blizzards or other disasters hit. As in the original Frostpunk, the weather plays a significant role, and the changing climate can quickly turn a stable situation into a crisis. Laws and policies. As in the first game, players in Frostpunk 2 have the ability to pass laws that shape the direction of the city. These laws can affect everything from how resources are allocated to how the citizens live their daily lives. For instance, you can implement policies that prioritize mass production to rapidly increase output during a crisis, or you can focus on producing durable goods that will last longer but take more time and resources to create. The law system in Frostpunk 2 is more complex than in the original, offering a wider range of policies and more nuanced consequences. Every law you pass has a ripple effect, and the factions within the city will react to your choices. This adds another layer of strategic depth to the game, as you must consider not just the immediate benefits of a law, but also the long-term impact on the city's politics and social stability. Visuals and sound design. One of the standout aspects of Frostpunk 2 is its visual design. The game takes the bleak, frozen aesthetic of the original and builds on it, creating a world that feels both desolate and awe-inspiring. The city of New London, with its towering generator and steampunk machinery, is beautifully detailed, and the snow-covered landscapes are hauntingly realistic. The game's sound design also plays a critical role in setting the mood. The music is slow and industrial, creating a sense of unease as you build your city and make difficult decisions. When major events occur, such as the passing of a law or the arrival of a storm, the audio cues change to reflect the gravity of the situation. During blizzards, the sound design ramps up with howling winds and muted emergency lights, creating a sense of urgency and tension. Challenges and replayability. One of the defining features of Frostpunk 2 is its difficulty. The game is not just about building a city. It's about surviving in a world where everything is against you. The ever-changing weather, the constant need for resources, and the demands of the factions all create a sense of pressure that can be overwhelming at times. However, this difficulty is part of what makes the game so rewarding. Every decision feels meaningful, and the consequences of your actions are often immediate and severe. The game's replayability comes from its branching narrative, and the wide range of possible outcomes based on the choices you make. With multiple factions, moral dilemmas, and different strategies for resource management, no two playthroughs of Frostpunk 2 are likely to be the same. This encourages players to experiment with different approaches and see how their decisions affect the fate of their city. Performance and technical issues. Despite its many strengths, Frostpunk 2 is not without its flaws. Some players have reported performance issues, particularly in larger cities. As your city grows and the game's complexity increases, frame rates can drop, especially on mid-range hardware. While the game runs smoothly in the early stages, later on, you may encounter slowdowns that require restarting the game to resolve. Hopefully, future updates will address these technical problems. In summary, Frostpunk 2 is a worthy sequel that builds on the strengths of the original while introducing new mechanics, deeper political systems, and a more complex narrative. Its blend of city building, survival, and moral decision-making makes it one of the most engaging strategy games on the market. Whether you're a fan of the first game or new to the series, Frostpunk 2 offers a challenging and rewarding experience that will keep you coming back for more, even as it tests your leadership and your morals.